Hey guys, Straight Jacket Jim here, just popping in for a bit of a chat about Star Wars Squadrons. So it's been out for a few days now, played it over the weekend, really loved it, but I just thought I would make a quick video to give you my impressions of it. And I've actually thought about doing this for new games for a little bit, because I've got my Star Wars Playtime series that I do with the old Star Wars games. What do I do when a new game gets released? So I've now created this new series called Star Wars New Play. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll throw up the intro screen now. Just recently, in fact a few days ago, we released a new Star Wars Playtime video for X-Wing, and I really loved that game as a kid. Unfortunately, if you go watch the video, you'll find out it hasn't aged that well. But Squadrons just scratches every itch that I had from X-Wing. It is an amazing game. I've only played it for about 8 hours, so I'm not very far into it, and I've done a mixture of the single player campaign and also some of the multiplayer stuff. So it is a game on the smaller side. I would estimate I'm probably about a quarter to a third through the campaign. I've played probably 4 hours or so of that, and the rest I've played in multiplayer. But if you do pick up the game, and it's fairly cheap, like it's $50 Australian, which, considering most games come out and they're, you know, $80, $90, $100, $50 is, you know, not a cheap game, but it's a reasonable amount to drop on this, I reckon. And I reckon it's a really great thing for you to do. So I've picked it up through Steam, and I'm playing with VR and a joystick. So the controls I'm really loving, and the VR as well adds a whole extra layer to it. So we'll talk about the joystick first. So this is the joystick that I'm playing on. It's just a Logitech Extreme 3D Pro that I've had sitting in the cupboard for a while. You've got your trigger button, you've got a button here, you've got the hat on top, as well as 4 buttons there, and then another 6 buttons on the side here, so you get a total of 12 buttons, including the trigger and the side button, and the throttle too. And I actually found that it was really well done in the way it just recognized the buttons and let you start doing things. So first of all, in VR, because you can move about a bit in VR, it gets a little bit hard sometimes with resetting the view. So the game has said, yep, we know that. Hold down button 11 on your joystick, or on my joystick, because it will actually tell you which button to press when it automatically maps everything somehow. Bit of IT trickery there. It'll reset the view and you'll be good to go again. And then as you're going through, you'll learn more. Like, obviously you got your trigger button is your fire button. They tell you button number 2, which is where your thumb is. That's what you do for to select the target straight ahead, and then you've got a button for selecting the next available target. You've got left auxiliary and right auxiliary components for your ship, which you can change in and out as you go, and that's a couple of other buttons. And then things like if you want to do your power management, that's done through the hat. You can also do your shield balancing. So if you hold down button 7, you can then use the hat to select front, middle, or back. And on the ships that don't have shields, there's a thing called, I forget it, but it's basically you send all power to either shields or all power to your lasers. One of the things I love the most, though, is the maneuverability of it. So the X-Wing games previously, well, from the way I played them, all sort of had this momentum thing. So you'd push your throttle up, you'd reach your max speed and you'd cruise at that, and then you'd pull the throttle back and you'd eventually slow down. But this game sort of takes inspiration more from the remake of Battlestar Galactica type combat, where you can move around and suddenly stop and just take off in the other direction. Like, there's a mechanic called drifting that you could use, which like does a really sharp turn, but I've even found just using the throttle and like bringing it back to near zero, turning and then pushing the throttle up again, and you take off so quick. So many times I've done these little maneuvers around like debris or around a capital ship, and all of a sudden I'm underneath it, and it's just so much fun doing that sort of thing. If you've got VR, this is a must-have VR game. When I was in high school, I did flight I was learning to fly. I went to a high school that actually did aviation as a course, and when I was 15 I went solo with a glider. First time I got in an X-Wing, all I could think of, oh my god, was this feels exactly like it would in a cockpit. In fact, it confused me a little bit there because I went to reach for the stick that I could actually see in the game to try and move that around and go, oh hang on, no, it's over here, but go back to that. It really adds to the game. So the X-Wing has a pretty open canopy, well, clear canopy, so you can see through it, and the A-Wing as well. And so when you're tracking targets, you can look up and track that target that goes over that way. I found that really good for just locking onto something and being able to follow it around and go, all right, I need to go this way now, instead of having to look at where that little icon was to remind you to go that way. So the single player campaign, I would very much advise that you play through, because it's a good introduction to the ship. So the first mission, you're playing in a TIE fighter to get you the basic controls and learning all different things. But as you progress through, you don't choose to play one faction or another faction in the campaign. You'll follow one faction for a bit and then you'll do another faction. So the prologue, you start off in a TIE fighter and you end up in a particular place, and then you'll switch over and all of a sudden you'll be flying the New Republic in an X-Wing, which is really cool. So you get a very quick introduction to both craft, and then later on, as you're doing missions, you'll be flying an A-Wing, or you'll fly a U-Wing or a Reaper, and learn the support ship. So it's actually really good to learn the function of each of the ships. But the multiplayer as well, I really love the multiplayer. So I started off just first in the dogfight, which is basic combat one-on-one. And it's quite interesting seeing the differences in the ships, how the TIE fighters can take a fair amount of punishment, but they're also maneuverable. It's quite well balanced in the way that all happens. And the second multiplayer battle that they've got is a thing called Fleet Battle. So it starts off, you're just in dogfights, but you've got your own little frigates and then your capital ship. So every time you kill an enemy, you get points, and there'll be a little bar at the top, and you'll see it'll move one way or the other. And when you get enough points, you'll be able to attack the enemy's frigates. And then once you've destroyed them, you'll be able to move on and attack the capital ship. But it does tend to go back and forward a little bit, because while you got enough points to attack the frigates, the other team's getting points and pushing their way back. So eventually you might get to a stage where they get control back, so they can go and attack your frigates. It did take me a little while to get my head around that mechanic. And like, there was a couple of times where I'm sitting there trying to kill a frigate that's on 1 health, and I just couldn't kill it because my team didn't have control. But once you get your head around it, it's actually a very cool little mechanic. And also at the same time, towards the end of the game, the capital ships get closer and closer. So they start fairly spread out, and then they just come in, and it's just, oh yeah, it's really cool. I would definitely recommend giving the multiplayer bits a go. And then we get to the customization. So I know a lot of people were quite surprised when EA's gone, we got a game here for you. It's only going to be $50. It's probably going to be mostly multiplayer is what you're going to play it for, but we got no microtransactions. And I'm quite surprised myself as well in that, so there's 2 different types of in-game currency. There's requisition, which you get to buy parts, and glory, which buys cosmetics for your ship, like different skins or different little bobbleheads or different hanging things inside your cockpit and stuff like that. The requisition is actually fairly easy to come by as well, and it seems to be your ship parts only cost like 1 requisition to get, and I think I'm at level 7 in the 6 or 7 in the multiplayer now, and I've had plenty of requisition to start buying parts and trying out new loadouts and things like that. So it's really quite cool to do that. And then the glory, like, that's a little bit more expensive for stuff, I'm finding, but it's also, you get some really cool items that are just cosmetic only that you buy for your ship, and it looks really cool. So I'm quite excited by this, and I'm finding myself now really hoping that that there'll be either some DLC or some new maps and maybe some new multiplayer modes as well. Even if it's paid DLC, I wouldn't mind some more campaign as well, even though I haven't finished this campaign yet. I'm really loving it. It's one of the best flight sims I've played in a long time, and granted, I haven't really played one seriously since probably X-Wing Alliance in '99. It is so much fun, and if you've got VR, definitely this is a must-have game for VR. The only thing that actually, I probably had two things that I had issues with. So one was that you're sitting in VR, you're in this big immersive environment, but when the cutscene plays, it's this little like letterbox thing. So all of a sudden, like the immersion breaks. If you can make that bigger, that would be fine, but it's just annoying at the moment. Like, and even that's a minor gripe. And the second one was I did have an issue in one multiplayer game where everything suddenly got very jerky, and I'm not sure whether that was my internet or not, but I didn't even have to close the program. The next multiplayer game, it cleared up. But there's not really anything negative I can say about them. Those are two very minor points. But yeah, just play the game. It is amazingly good for a $50 game, and I would definitely recommend it. I've been debating whether to do ratings for this as well, and I think if it's sort of going to be a off-the-cuff sort of side project to Star Wars Playtime, that yes, I will do ratings, and I'm going to guess that you guys know what I'm going to give this as a rating, because I've been very, very glowing throughout the whole thing, and I'm very much going to give this an I know rating. I just want to give a quick shout out to It's Me from the No Hypers forums that I post on. There's only like 3 or 4 of us that post there, remnants of the old Hyper magazine forums that used to have, but he's been really great in supporting me through doing this series. He's given me a few good ideas, like the name for Extra Time he came up with, and even the name for this one, the new play, he came up with as well. So I want to say a big thank you to It's Me for that. I also want to say thank you to everybody watching this. So it's a new series that just sort of came up out of playing Rogue Leader for Star Wars Day back in May, and it's grown from there, and I've really enjoyed going back and finding these old games, and I'm hoping to continue it for a while yet. I'm at the point now where I'm actually having to search for games, so we'll see how that continues to go from here on out. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you continue to watch it into the future.